Welcome to the Retention Nation podcast, the show for e-commerce brands looking to turn one-time and sometime buyers into lifetime and forever customers. Hosted by Isaac Hyman, an ex-VP of Retention and featured speaker, author, masterclass creator, and founder of HiFlyer Digital, each episode features successful brands, apps, and experts who are sharing cutting-edge, innovative, and proven email SMS retention insights that help them grow their business to the next level profitably. Our mission is to give you the retention strategies you need to unlock profitable, predictable, and scalable revenue from every customer on your list. Let's get started. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Retention Nation podcast. I'm your host, Isaac Hyman, and today we're going to be talking about something really foundational, which is the 3 email and SMS strategy flaws that are secretly draining your e-commerce revenue. I get asked by a lot of brands, about campaigns and flows and triggers and design and copy, but in reality, it's the biggest lever of growth for your brand starts with understanding the foundation and building your total program on a strong foundational strategy. That's the secret behind it, right? And I'm coming from the 9 and 10 figure brands where I actually did not have that foundation. I started off, and I'll tell you a lot of stories on this episode where, what my foundation started with was totally different than what I ended with. And that was a big difference between growing by 1, 2, 3% a year to actually growing by 80, 90, triple digits every single year. So really excited to get into this with you. As always, I recommend you get a copy of my book, my 330-page email SMS playbook, updated very recently with a new cover, new design, new look and feel. It's a really thick book full of strategy and insights. Lots of lead magnets in that book that include a lot of our content. So super excited to dive into that with you. And I hope you get a copy. But let's talk about the things that are really most important right now, which is the actual strategy and foundation and why brands keep getting it wrong. Let's dive right in. So number one, you may know my background already, right? But the background I want to share with you is that I didn't come in and automatically be a VP of retention at the top brands, right? I didn't always have the secrets and the tools and the tactics and the strategy behind how to grow a brand, right? It started with trial and error, lots and lots of trial and error. And I think one thing I want to focus on is that when I was first starting out, I was just a email marketing manager, just like most people start out if you're working with some of the big brands, right? You start small. And what got me thinking was my trial and error I had with my own email platform. When I came in to a family of 9-figure brands, I actually started off with a platform, an ESP called Responses. And Responses is extremely enterprise. I think it's owned by Oracle. And it's a great platform, but reality is it was not a fit for what we wanted to become. I came into a company that a month later, 2 months later, they hired a CEO, they hired a CMO, totally new team, and they had a totally different philosophy than what we used to be doing. Before, the brands that we worked with were more product centric, right? Focusing on selling products and let's talk about the product as much as possible. And they think that was the tip of the spear. The new CEO, new CMO came in, they said it's actually all about the customer, right? So we want to be more customer centric. So as a result of that, we had to rethink all our tools, all our tactics, all our strategy around that philosophy. And that's what required us to rethink our approach to email, SMS, or retention. So that's my background a little bit from what started this. What was the genesis of this episode right now? So after really speaking to hundreds of brands, and as you can see, I like to also be a lot visual in my podcast, right? Show slides and show visuals and kind of get that impression out. I don't just like to talk at the screen. I think that's cool. We can do that sometimes, but I like to actually show visuals. So if you're watching this video one, you'll see the visuals here. But I talk to a lot of brands. I talk to a lot of them. And a lot of brands ask me all the time, hey, can we fix the flows? Can we fix the campaigns? And can we fix the design? Can we do this copy? Can we do this? Can we do that? And reality is they miss out on some of the biggest opportunities, which is the foundation, which is what you need to do to rethink your entire operation from the ground up in some cases. And after talking to them, hundreds of brands over the years and hundreds of audits, I found that there really are 3 core focus areas that your brand needs to focus on to really get that foundation right. Because at the end of the day, anyone could design an email, anyone could send an email, Anyone could write copy. And what you're missing is probably the foundational elements of your strategy. And that's going to really move the needle for everything you're doing, right? You can't build a home, decorate a home, and host a family and host guests and really have a good inviting environment without that right foundation in place, right? So that's going to be super important to understand. So let's get into number one, right? What is probably the biggest problem, a foundational flaw that brands are facing right now is that they put the tech before the strategy, right? You put your tech, your tools, your tactics above your actual strategy. And again, I want to go back to my story for a second, right? I was a email marketing manager, family of nine-figure brands. I was working in our email platform responses at the time. New CEO, CMO came in, said we're customer centric. And after a year of trying to be customer centric with our ESP responses, we threw up our hands and said, you know what, this isn't working. We need a new tool. We just couldn't get the segmentation right. We couldn't get the personalization right. We spent days cracking our head over advanced segmentation capabilities, finding the right customers we want to send the right email to. It just was not a good fit. And this is a great example of you're putting the tech before the strategy. And you're putting the tech before the strategy. And most brands actually do the same exact thing. They think to themselves, you know what? I heard good things about Klaviyo or Omnisend or ListTrack or you name it, and they don't think about, well, what do we want to accomplish with this? So they think about that first, okay? And what I found is that a lot of brands also, they hear from freelancers, they hear from just the noise out there that say, you know what, if you want to grow your email revenues, you have to have better design. If you want to grow your revenues, you got to have better copy. And or you have to focus on your flows, or you gotta focus on your landing page. And that's all good and well, right? But the root of it is you need the strategy first. You need to know, what are we trying to accomplish here? What is our mission? I'll give you a couple examples about the difference between the mission. Is that some brands like I know there's an ESP called Sail Through. They have a lot of content brands. So brands that focus on content. Think about like ESPN does content, and BuzzFeed sends out content emails, and they're all about the content that they're sharing, the tips, the news, the Bleacher Report, another great example, right? So they all sending content. So for them, they need an email platform that specializes in sharing content and gets the right content, the right feeds, the right integrations to make it work. But for e-commerce brands, the biggest goal you want to have is clicks. You want to get conversions. You want to get sales. In order to do that, you need a tool and a tactic and a strategy that's centered around personalization. That's the tip of the spear, right? Because design and copy and layouts and templates and products are all resulting in one thing: more clicks, because that's where they convert. And in order to get more clicks, you need more personalization. So don't think about design and copy as the starting point. Those are the symptoms of great personalization, right? Great design is because of better personalization. Great copy is because of better personalization. Great flows is because of better personalization, right? So you got to think of it from the angle of strategy first, tools, tech, tactics after. I can't tell you how many brands think to themselves, "Oh, we should switch away from Klaviyo because it's too expensive." Well, is it though? Because if your strategy is about personalization, you should be using it correctly. We'll get to that in a second. I found there's four key pillars when it comes to strategy. And again, you'll read this in my book. You'll see this in my masterclass. You'll see this in my content everywhere. Just four key pillars: segmentation, personalization, automation, multiplication. That's the strategy my team brings to every single brand out there. And it works for 9 and 10 figure brands to 6 to 7 figure brands. It constantly works if you work it. And that strategy is all about right person, right message, right time, repeat. Right person, right message, right time, repeat. Right? That's really the goal of it. You want to send the right person the right message at the right time in their buying cycle and repeat it and scale it for different products, cohorts, channels, you name it. And that's how you build your foundation. And when you think about it, now you can find a tool that specializes in segmentation, or you can find a tool that specializes in personalization, or you can find an ESP that is excellent at automation or triggers. And then you can layer in other tools and technology to multiply it. Great example here. We work with a lot of brands that do a lot of flows within Klaviyo, and we multiply that their flow experience using other apps like Retention or Cluvos or any other app out there to help multiply it. Now, that is a tactic, adding in more tools, but it's nested on the strategy first. And on top of that, the strategy is more than just, rules. It actually results in things, right? With segmentation, you can cut your Klaviyo costs in half. You can cut your email costs in half, right? There's symptoms and byproducts of having a strategy first approach, right? You can cut your email costs in half. You can, with personalization, you could double your clicks and your conversions. With automation, you could save time by running more advanced flows. It's the power of flows, right? With multiplication, you could scale your brand by multiplying channels, adding in more channels on top of it because you have the strategy, right? Not the other way around. If you were on MailChimp right now and you're saying to yourself, you know what? MailChimp is good because I can send more campaigns and it's not as expensive. Okay, I get it. You want to save money. Cool. Makes sense. But you know what? You're never going to grow to the next level without segmentation and personalization. And MailChimp doesn't compare when it comes to personalization to Klaviyo, right? It just doesn't compare. It's not even close. I've worked with all of them. And if you're not getting to the next level, what's the point, right? Law of diminishing returns. Take another example. If you're on, I'll give another example. We migrated a brand who was on Campaign Monitor. They were doing some flows for them. An e-commerce brand who was making about $5 million a year online. Also had a store, make another 10 million from the store. Campaign Monitor has very hollowed out flows. Now maybe they changed. Maybe they're awesome now. I don't know. Very hollowed out flows, and we brought them to Klaviyo because we said to them, you have better segmentation, you have better personalization, you have more ways to get people to buy online and in the store, and better flows to follow up for you. It's a win-win because you have the right strategy in place first, not the cheapest tool, not the cheapest tech, not the cheapest tactic. So the strategy has to come first before you think about any other tool, tech, or tactic. So I always remind people, right? It's not just me saying this. This is how the top brands think, right? It's a 10-figure mindset, right? And the mindset has to shift. Your mindset has to stop thinking about which tool or tech or tactic will allow me to send more emails, right? For cheaper. That is not the best mindset because you're just, and you'll learn about this in a second, you're just as good as your last send at that point, right? If you're just sending a campaign and you want to send more and more and more, people will tune that out. You're talking at people, you're not listening to people, you're not reacting to people. So it's not the best mindset to have, right? How would you feel if someone just kept blowing up your phone, right? Just calling you every single day, say, hey, what's going on? Hey, did you buy this? Did you buy that? It's annoying. You want to change your mindset to start building better customer relationships. And by understanding which tool helps you build better customer relationships, that's the way to approach it, right? Relationship first, customer centric first, tool layered on top of that. And even Klaviyo joined that mindset, right? They realized we can't just be a platform that sends emails because anyone could do that. You could do this with SendGrid, Mailgun, MailChimp, Campaign Monitor, dozens and dozens of technologies send emails. But in order to transcend to the next level, in order to think about what it means to be more of a vital part of an e-commerce brand, they have to transcend beyond that and start thinking about how to build better customer relationships. Right. So they borrowed a line from me, which is excellent. I love it. It's on my book. I've said it many times, how to build better customer relationships. And that's the point of it, right? So that's the future. That's actually been the present for the 9-10 figure brands. That's the future for the smaller brands who may not be aware of it. I've been aware of it for years already. That's kind of where people need to go. Build better customer relationships. Don't just send emails. Let's talk about strategy number 2 that most brands fail at. This is one no one really talks about, and they really should. And usually they kind of leave it up to their CTO or their CFO, right? And they just kind of think, really their CTO. They leave it up to their tech people and say, you know what? Whatever data you send me, we'll use whatever data. But no one has any clue about the amount of data that exists at their fingertips because they have zero data dictionary. E-commerce brands don't take the time to look at what data they have. They're always concentrating on what else, right? Do we get sales? Do we get conversion? I'm here to tell you, set your foundation all around data. data-driven decisions. And I'm not just talking about zero-party data or first-party data. I'm talking about anything. You have dozens, if not hundreds of data points at your fingertips, and you probably don't even know that. And it's time you get to know it. Here's the example of a brand we work with where we were looking at their data, looking at this customer right here. And we came on board maybe a few months ago, and they said, you know what? Great. What can we do from an email program? What would you recommend? Should we send campaigns? Should we start with flows? Where do we start? And I said, you know where you start? We need to start with understanding what data you have to work with. What data is at your fingertips? Why is this important? Because if I know what information is coming in, I can build campaigns and flows around that data. Why? Because going back to my first point, because our strategy is nested on segmentation and personalization. If I don't know what data I have for a customer, how can I segment it? If I don't know what data points are coming in every single hour, how can I personalize my campaigns and flows? Right? So it all nests on your data. And at the 9 and 10 figure brands, and even at some of the clients we have now, they have rewards points data. They have financing and credit data. They have loyalty data. They have reviews data. They have obviously clicks and opens and conversions. Of course, they have that stuff. We have RFM data. We have predictive data. All these data points are at your fingertips. You're just not using it. Or you're thinking, from what I've seen, majority of brands are thinking about which email can we send tomorrow? Which email can we send in 2 days? Which email can we send a month from now? That's just backwards. Why don't you focus on what information do we have on our customer so we can send the next email perfectly and go from sending 10 mediocre campaigns to 2 great campaigns? But it starts with the information you have, the data at your fingertips, and that starts with creating a data dictionary. This customer right here very clearly has points available. And this brand never ran a points email or a points reminder or a points flow. And so they just left this data point, which is vital to the customer. It's so important that they know how many points they have available to them. It's like a discount, right? They never even looked at it. Okay, well, time to look at it because you have it. The customer has it. He'll find it's helpful when you message them about it. What's not to love, right? Let's not talk about hawking products. Let's talk about personalizing messages. That's the point. And I used to create with my tech team. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't just myself doing it, right? My tech team also helped me create this, my data analytics team. We created a data dictionary that clearly said, this is the field we have in a customer, and this is what that field means, and this is the data point we should expect. Is it a Boolean, or is it a digit or a numeric, I believe, right? Kind of all these little terms. Text-based field. What is the value can expect? How often is it coming in? What does it mean? Is it important or is it not important, right? And leverage the data you have. That's super important. No one does this. And I've listened to dozens of podcasts and read books and seen the experts out there, and they don't even know what's going on because they never start at the foundation. They're always saying, why don't you send this campaign with better design? Why don't you send this campaign with better copy? What are you talking about? Why don't you send an email that talks to the person with the information they have? That's going to do a lot better, right? You're going to make 3 times more revenue that way. Start with the data. Create a data dictionary. Go to Klaviyo, go to Omnisend right now. Export all your customers. Look at every single data point you have there. Make a dictionary. Write it down. This is what that means, right? Because what happens next is if you have that data point, you can start creating campaigns around it and flows around it, right? We build out dozens and dozens of flows right here. You can see it on your screen, right? We have a portfolio of probably over 100 to 200 flows in our portfolio and roadmap for brands. And in this case, with that 8 figure brand, we saw that, you know what, we have all these rewards data, and I have about 6 to 8 automations I could turn on using that rewards data right away, right? Six to 10 flows, right? That's huge. You know what a game changer that is for a business? To look at your customer file and say, guess what? We could turn on all these flows right now, and I can personalize every single campaign that goes out the door even better. That means real revenue, and I'm not winging it anymore. I'm not thinking about what email can I send next because I have the data, right? I have the information from them. And you can work backwards from this too, because now instead of focusing on flows that you read about or heard about And I see someone actually on LinkedIn just posted the other day, this is a great flow you should run. You should run a sunset flow before they're about to churn. Well, okay, whatever, something made up. And I'm like, why would do that when you could just look at your customer data, see what they have, and send them an email about that specific point? That's going to make you more, right? Focus on that. So build your flows around the customer specifically. And it starts with creating a data dictionary. And when you think about it, you have all this data, you have your technology, you have your strategy now, and that's probably why you're barely using your technology. You're using 10% of it. Majority of brands only use 10% of their tech, right? They have a ton of information, ton of capabilities, ton of technologies, ton of integrations, ton of data points that you're not even leveraging, right? You're barely using your Klaviyo, you're barely using Shopify. And it just takes the time to say, what is our strategy? What do we want to do? Right? From a 9 and 10 figure mindset, I started off with saying, we want to focus on being the best in the game at segmentation and personalization. That's our goal. So I need the tech to help me get there, and I need the data to know what I can do for personalization, right? So now I'm basing my tech tools all around my strategy, and my data dictionary is helping empower the strategy overall, right? So that's a foundational element. You need to have that dictionary and understand what data is available for your customers and how you're leveraging it. End of the day, right? And therefore, you're saving money because now you're using Klaviyo to its full potential, using Shopify to its full potential, and you never have to worry about costs again because you're doubling and tripling your revenues. And started with just a data dictionary. Third foundational mistake brands are making right now when it comes to email SMS is that they are totally out of sync when it comes to their campaigns and their flows. Do you see a migration here, right? We started with getting the foundational strategy first. Got to know what's happening first. Once you found your strategy, you can then layer on your technology, right? Now you have the technology. Now you need to know what customer data you have. And then once you have the data, then you can start focusing on campaigns and flows. And the biggest problem is that balance, right? They're out of balance. And if your campaigns are not balanced with your flows, you're either going to be chasing the next campaign and you're only as good as your next campaign, or you suck at follow up and you're not making money from your follow up plan. Let's go deeper into this. So, when it comes to flows, right, we all know the money is in the follow up. And when you're sending a campaign out there, usually it's a campaign, let's say on a Monday, and you're talking about your new arrival. Just keep it basic, right? A new arrivals campaign for you just got another 1,000 new arrivals, 1,000 new SKUs, or even 10 new SKUs in. You have a new arrivals campaign. You send it out on Monday, and then you're kind of crossing your fingers, and maybe you'll get a 1% or 2% conversion rate, and you'll go home and sleep at night relatively okay, right? But when's the next campaign going out? By Thursday? Friday? So you're kind of twiddling your thumbs there for the next couple of days, wondering, how am I paying my bills now, right? What's going on this month? Now, if your flows are built out, then your flows will do the follow-up for you. But if you don't have the flows built out, you won't have the follow-up. So you won't have a message go out to the best populations on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or a Thursday, right? So too few flows equals bad follow-up because the money's in the follow-up. As I said before, this is an example of a brand here they're about 90% weighted to campaigns, right? So that means they're only as good as their next campaign, and they're constantly having to scramble. Now think of it the other way. Like, let's just think from a time perspective. If I sent a campaign on a Monday and then I got distracted, and then maybe next campaign is going on Thursday. What happens if I get busy on Thursday? Let's say something comes up. There's an emergency. My power goes out. My I don't know. God, my carpool went late, or there's something going on in my life that I just couldn't send on Thursday. Well, then you're kind of scrambling next Monday, and you're just not creating some sort of consistency to your list or to your bottom line, right? So you can't just focus on campaigns. It's not going to work, right? It's not balanced. And you want to create a channel that's profitable, predictable, and sustainable. There's no predictability here, right? You see how that works? Let's look at the flip side, right? Let's say, and I've seen this a lot on my feed, on my Instagram feed, I'm saying, oh, we'll build out your flows and we'll promise you 20% of revenue with 30% increase of revenue from building out your flows. But here's the truth. You can have all these flows built, And you can have 10 flows, 20 flows, 30 flows built. Oh my God, that's crazy. That's awesome, right? Is it though? It's not that awesome when you have no gas for your flows. You can have an amazing flow engine built out, ready to go. But your campaigns are meant to drive people into those flows. No one's abandoning their cart if they're not getting a campaign. No one's abandoning a product if they're not getting a campaign about the product. No one's coming to your site unless they're getting driven to your site, right? Do you think, well, don't have too much of an ego to think that everyone's going to be shopping your site. Your entire list is on your site all the time, right? It doesn't happen that way. You need to drive traffic to it, right? Traffic generation is the root of your email program, right? So you need to focus on that. You need more gas for your flows. So if you have too few campaigns, you will never get the flows to the next level. So there's no gas. You have this flow engine built out and all gas, but not gassed up and can't go anywhere. And this brand right here had that problem, right? We're making about 10% of revenue or 8% of revenue from their campaigns and 91% of the revenue from flows, but there wasn't enough gas. They're still growing. Don't get me wrong, still growing at a decent rate, 68K a month, but not enough, right? They should be at 120 a month or something like that, right? Not enough gas from their flows, so you can't have it. It's off balance. There's no balance, as Thanos said, right? Thanos, right? Marvel, everything needs to be in balance. And so important to keep it balanced 50-50 to scale. What that means is try to get your campaigns and flows in the 50-50 range. 40-60 is good, 30-70 also, but eventually this will allow you to create a more predictable revenue stream for your business, right? Knowing that your campaigns are driving traffic, your flows are doing the follow up for you, and on it goes, right? So now you only need to send 1, 2, maybe 3 campaigns a week, and your flows are doing the heavy lifting for you after that, right? It's 80-20. 80% of the revenue comes from 20% of your customers. So the flows will follow up with the 20% that didn't convert. And that's how it goes, right? It keeps it balanced. And look at that same brand as I screenshot before. Now they're at, fast forward to October, they're at $117,000 in revenue. They grew by 50K because we got them more balanced. Not there yet, not fully there yet. They're about 60-40. Like to get to about 45-55, maybe 50-50. But that's the problem. That's the goal. We want to make sure that there's balance in their campaigns and in their flows because it's much more profitable and predictable that way. You don't have to worry about, being called away on a Monday or having a delay in your own schedule or someone calling in sick and you're like, well, my God, what about my campaign? I'm not making any money this week. You don't have to worry about it anymore, right? Now you freed up your time. And like I said before, right, with the right strategy, right, you're saving money, you're saving time, you're making money, and you're scaling, right? That's the strategy. So we built it all in the strategy as well. So that's another mistake brands are making. Their campaigns and flows are out of balance. Just one more example right here. This brand also had the same problem where they simply were making $35,000 a month from their email SMS retention program. We got them to $200,000 a month simply by creating balance. Balance is everything because they fuel each other, right? It's a flywheel. HiFlyer Digital, right? That's what we're about. It's a flywheel effect. So you got to have that perfect balance in general. So let's talk about the Retention Nation takeaways from this episode here, right? So number one, strategy over tools, tech and tactics. Strategy first. Get into strategy first before you get into those tools and tech and tactics, right? Don't think of it like let's get to Klaviyo and then let's build a strategy around it. Get your strategy first. You get in my book. Get my book. I'll give you a full strategy right there. Number two, get a data dictionary. Export your customer data right now, right? Right after this episode, go into your Klaviyo account, go into your Shopify, just export it all and take a day to understand what data you have at your fingertips, because then that will define all the campaigns and flows you can run for the next next 90 days. Easy. And then finally, everything in balance. Campaigns and flows running in sync, in harmony, in unity, right? More traffic to the site from your campaigns, flows do the follow-up for you. You'll make more money, your revenues will rise, and you'll start scaling. Those are the 3 foundational problems brands are really not even thinking about these days. So if you fix those foundational problems, your brand will get to the next level with email SMS retention. Thanks for joining me on this podcast episode. I hope you learned a lot. I think this is really important because, again, foundational tactics, foundational ideas are more important than just tactics, right? And you want to be a strategy-first brand, customer-centric brand that focuses on how do you build better customer relationships and not just send the next email, because that's what the top brands are doing. That's what your biggest competitors are doing. And if you're not doing it, you're going to fall behind very fast. You may even be falling behind right now. So highly recommend you get a copy of my book, get that strategy, and I will see you on the next podcast episode. We'll talk more about the holiday planning and other new things to help you turn your one-time and sometime buyers into lifetime buyers every time and in half the time. Thank you for joining me on this episode. I will see you on the next one. Thanks for listening to the Retention Nation podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe and join our Retention Nation Facebook group. If you want to put this week's retention strategy into action within minutes, all done for you by our expert email, SMS, and retention team, you can go to HiFlyerDigital.com/book for a free 15-minute chat with myself and my team. It's time to turn those one-time and sometime buyers on your list into lifetime buyers and unlock the revenue you deserve. Your brand is worth it, and your customers will thank you for it. Until next week, I'm Isaac Hyman, wishing you a successful and profitable week.